Hello, Abnormals! Welcome back to the Ministry of Abnormality. I am your host, O Abnormal, and today we are going to talk about how to deal with other people's success. So, where to begin? In your field, has the success of another person ever made you feel bad? Maybe it's somebody on the other side of the world and you see them succeeding with whatever project or anything, and you just look at them and their success and you can't help but thinking, man, I suck. Or maybe the opposite. Man, they suck. Why are they successful? I'm better than them. Of course, you don't say that to anybody because that's not the kind of thing you say in public, but it's happened to me plenty of times that I see somebody that's really, really successful, but not really very good. So I feel bad. And do you hate them a little bit? I know. Hate is such a strong word, but do you? Even just a little? And then do you hate yourself? Like, do you feel bad because you felt bad and you think you should be better than that? You see, here's the thing. You're not alone. Every single time I talk about dealing with other artists in your life and dealing with the success of other artists in your life, or any field for that matter, I always get the same answer. And honestly, I'm sick of it. It's always the same thing. You can't compare yourself to others. Oh, really? Thank you. I didn't know that wonderful secret to happiness. Oh, it's just don't think about it? Great, I didn't know my brain had an off and on switch. It's not that simple. It's not so simple as to simply not compare yourself to others. It's just something that happens. We don't control it. So don't feel bad, and you know what? Don't convince yourself of that crap that you can just not compare yourself to others. Don't do that ever. No, it's gonna happen. And whoever's telling you to not compare yourself to others, I am willing to bet that they're lying. Not that they're lying in that should be the ideal way. Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome if we could just do that. But I'll bet that they're lying. They do compare themselves to others. We all do. We can't control it, but what we can control is how we deal with it. We compare ourselves to others almost compulsively, but how do we deal with that? Well, that's what we can talk about here. What kind of questions can we ask ourselves when we find ourselves looking at other people's success, feeling bad about it, and comparing ourselves? What kind of questions can we ask ourselves? Well, first question we can ask ourselves is, are we at the same point in time? You see, in today's world, we can see everybody, and we can see the lives that they show us, but there's a lot of stuff we don't see. You know, the internet and social media and stuff like that makes it look like everybody's happy and successful, and we're not. But think about all the stuff that we're not seeing. And I'm not talking about bad stuff. I'm not talking about secretly laughing at that person that seems to be super happy on social media when you know for a fact that they are miserable. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you see this artist that is having great success. Hey, maybe they've been doing this like 30 years more than you. Maybe they've been at this for decades and you just started a couple of years ago. Now, of course, this doesn't change the fact, and let's just get that straight right from the beginning. None of this changes the fact that other people are successful when either you're not or you don't feel successful. And it's not going to change that fact, but it is going to make it a lot easier for us to deal with other people's success if we understand that they've just been doing this way longer. That means that you're just behind them on the road, right? Remember when you were a little kid and you were like, I don't know, 7 or 8. And then, I don't know, something like a 10-year-old would come up and you would be like, oh, like they are so big and so old and you would envy them. Think about how dumb that is, because it's not my fault that I was born 3 or 4 years behind another person. That doesn't say anything about me. It just says what year I was born. You shouldn't envy a person that is simply a little bit ahead of you on the sidewalk. You'll get there eventually. They just started walking before you. You'll get there. It's not a race. Don't envy another artist because they are at a point in their career that simply means that they started before you. You'll get there. You're on your way. You're walking. You will get there eventually. Just they started walking before you. So what is the next question we can ask ourselves? Are your circumstances vastly different? When you look at this other artist that is successful while you either feel like you're not or you're just not, are maybe their circumstances way different from where you are, like your situation? I feel that this is a question that I am in a very unique position to answer because I'm an artist that lives in Colombia, South America. I started my webcomic in 2004, right? I started commissioned comic in 2004. And as I started to develop my webcomic and start to gain an audience and stuff like that, I started looking at other webcomic artists, and I would see that all the time they would be going to conventions. And it always made me feel bad. Well, for starters, because I felt left out. All these webcomic artists were like friends. They all knew each other. Like it was, all the webcomics I liked, they knew each other. And they would meet at conventions and they would hang out. And they seemed like a fun group of people. And I would see webcomic artists that would travel all over the place, just going and going and going to conventions. And I mean, let's admit it, it looks very, very, very impressive when an artist that you follow goes like, oh, you're going to be able to see me at this convention this weekend. And I always looked at them and I always found myself like wondering, wow, what would it be like to be that successful with my webcomic? That I could go to a convention and have a table or a booth or something. Wow, I wonder if I'm ever going to be that successful. After many years of webcomicking, in 2009, I finally made it up to Connecticut, a not very large convention in, well, of course, Connecticut, US. And I got to meet the webcomic artists and all that kind of stuff, and I realized that it wasn't quite like I thought it was. You see, going to a convention it does require a certain amount of notoriety, money, but we're not talking like insane levels of success here. If you can afford it and, that's it, you can probably go to most conventions. A lot of them do have like a selection process and all that, but the thing is, if you're in a location and there's a convention there and you got enough money, you can probably go there. You can probably be an artist at the convention. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that artists that go to conventions are not deserving or anything like that. No, I'm just saying that the whole idea I had in my head of having to be a certain level of successful to go to a convention, well, that wasn't true. I just didn't know that because I was here in Colombia looking at people in the US doing their conventions and stuff, and it's very different once you're there. And yes, I got to meet the other webcomic artists, and it was a lot of fun, and they were great people, and they were super nice, and I made some great friends. But I realized that you don't have to have the most successful webcomic on the planet to go to a convention. You just got to be able to go to a convention. And at that convention, I met somebody who became my business partner, and we worked together for a few years. And with that person, I got to go to many other conventions, and it was the same situation. And don't get me wrong, it felt very good. It felt awesome to be able to go to these places. But I did understand through that experience that no, it's not that I'm the most successful artist in the world. It's just that I had this opportunity, and this opportunity, well, yeah, it presented itself and I took it. You see, I don't like it when people blame their circumstances for their failures, right? Like, I live in South America where there aren't that many conventions. There's maybe a couple here where I live, and that's it. And I'm not really interested. So, naturally, I don't go to a lot of conventions. I used to, and even when I was, like, going to a lot of conventions, for me, that was, like, maybe 4 a year. And that was a lot. And the other webcomic artists, they were going to, like, a convention a month or something like that. And I learned not to feel bad about that. Now, do keep in mind, this is very different than hiding behind your circumstances, which is a completely different thing. And I see it happen with artists a lot. Don't hide behind your circumstances. Your geographical location is no excuse. The circumstances of your life, a bunch of things that I'm just not going to go into because that would take me into a discussion I don't want to have. But there's no good in blaming things that are beyond your control for your weaknesses. But at the same time, you shouldn't feel bad for things that are beyond your control. So, yeah, I mean, if your webcomic is a failure, it's not necessarily because you don't live in the US. But if you're not going to like 12 conventions a year because you live in a country where there are no conventions and traveling to the US is extremely expensive and difficult and time-consuming, well then yeah, maybe you shouldn't feel bad because you can't go to conventions. This was a very difficult question to deal with, but hopefully I managed to come across with a certain clarity. Okay, so after the awkwardness of that last question, because it was kind of difficult, I had to record that one a bunch of times. Okay, let's go on to the next question. And what could the next question be? Well, does this person that is successful, do they even do the same thing you do? Now, check it out. I've seen a lot of times, because maybe they're interviewed or something like that. Okay, here's an example. I remember one time I was watching Bobby Chew's. I don't know if you guys know Bobby Chew. He's an artist. I admire him greatly. But I was watching one of his videos where he was interviewing this guy that works in animation. And my admiration for the guy was turning to envy, and my envy was turning to hate. I was watching this guy being interviewed by Bobby Chew, like a dream for me. I would love to be on Bobby Chew's show, being interviewed by him. That's like a bucket list thing for me. And this guy, hugely successful animator, I was looking at him, I was watching the video, I was listening to what he was saying about his story and all that kind of stuff, and his success, and I was feeling bad. Until I stopped and asked myself, why am I feeling bad? I'm not even an animator. I don't do anything with animation. I took like a class of animation when I was in the university, and that's it. I do not work with animation. I don't even want to work with animation. Why is the success of this artist making me feel bad about myself when we don't even do the same thing? Yes, we both work entertaining people. Yes, we both work with the graphic arts. But he was an animator, and I am just not an animator. A lot of times, we tend to group everybody that is in like the same area of life. You know, like the arts. When the success of this other person is in a field that, even though it's still art, it has nothing to do with what we do. Why are we feeling bad about the success of somebody that has nothing to do with what we do? But okay, so we looked at time, we looked at circumstances. Are they even doing the same thing? what else can we ask ourselves? Are we talking about the same skill? Now, what do I mean with this question? A lot of times, I've seen people that are more successful than me. But, and this happens to us all, it's probably happened to you. You look at a person that is much more successful than you, and you find yourself thinking, but I'm a better artist. And you feel bad. You feel bad. You don't say that in public. That sounds like super egomaniacal. Like, I am a better artist. Why are you successful? But we do think it, and we've all thought it. So what's going on there? Why is this person so much more successful than we are when we are clearly better than them? One thing that is very important to learn in the life of an artist and many other fields is that, unfortunately, skill does not guarantee success. You can be the best artist on the planet and still not be successful in the industry, quote unquote. Because there's other skills, right? A lot of times I've seen artists that are not better than me, but they're better business people than me. I've seen artists that they don't draw better than I do, but they manage social media so much better. They don't color better than I do, but holy crap, those people have business sense that I wish I had. And the thing is, while that does mean that they have a skill that we don't, I find as an artist that it's a lot easier to deal with that difference. Right? A lot of times it's just easier to say like, oh, okay, you know, the skill that this other artist has is irrelevant. They're just very good business people. And I admire that, and I think I should learn that too, but it doesn't make me feel as bad. And I know it sounds a little bit petty, but holy crap, this whole video has been about being petty. So, who cares? A lot of times, what we are envying, what we're hating from the other person's success is not their skill as far as art is concerned. A lot of times, the difference is their skill as a business person, as a promoter, as a manager, as a social media manager, as a communicator, as all those things. And while we should get those skills and we should learn those skills, it doesn't make me feel as bad, right? It just doesn't. So hey, maybe that'll help you too. So we've looked at differences in the time that we've spent working. We've looked at differences in circumstances that are beyond our control. We've looked at differences in are we even doing the same thing? And we've asked ourselves if maybe the skill that has led to their success has nothing to do with the skill that we are comparing at that moment. So what next? Next would be a difficult question, but an important question. That question is, at the end, are they simply better? And this is not something to like feel defeated or give up or anything like that. It's just, yeah, some people are simply better. And I don't mean better as human beings. I don't mean anything like that. I mean, some people are just more skilled. Some people are just better artists than we are. It's not an invitation to give up. It's just, okay, yeah, you know, I have to work harder. I have to dedicate myself more. I have to improve certain weaknesses that I have. And this other person has already overcome those obstacles, and they're just better. It doesn't mean I can never reach them. It doesn't mean I can never improve myself to that point. But sometimes we just have to admit that the reason this other person is successful is because they're just very, very, very good. And it's difficult to admit. It's difficult to just look at things realistically and say to ourselves, yeah, they deserve that success. They deserve it because they're very good. And we don't have to feel bad about that because that just means, oh, okay, you know, that's awesome. Great for them. And I'll just work harder. I'll work harder and we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, they're just good. It's a difficult thing to admit. But sometimes that's the answer. And with this acceptance will come a clarity and a calm. Don't defeat yourself. Don't just lie down and take it. But it's okay if there's somebody better than you. Just work harder. So we've asked ourselves all these questions. What comes next? Because, okay, yeah, so we compare ourselves to others, and now we don't feel bad about it, but what now? I mean, I just made myself feel a little bit better. How do we benefit from all this? Look around you at all these people that are successful, that are making you feel bad, and start to look at them as rivals. And having rivals is good. It's a good thing to have people that you're running against. And they don't even have to know. You don't even have to tell them or ask them for permission. There's a bunch of artists that I admire, and I just see them as rivals. You compare yourself, and you look at them, and you think, you don't think, I want to be as good as you. You think, I want to be better than you. It's not a mean thing. I'm not going up to these people and saying that to their faces, but it's an attitude. I look at the artist I admire, and I want to be as good as they are, in addition to how good I am, which should be greater than. Rivals are important to have. Imagine a race. Imagine a race, and you're number one. Well, first of all, imagine a race where it's just you. Well, that's not a race. That's just you running. We need other people to race against. That's just reality. If there's no other people to race, it's not a race. It's just you running. So imagine a race, and imagine that you're number one. You don't even know how fast you're supposed to run. You're just running as fast as you can and hoping that you stay at number one. Sometimes it's a much better position to be behind number one. Number one determines the pace of the race. Number two has to beat number one. And I just know I'm going to make a poop joke. But the thing is, if you're number one, you run as fast as you can and hope that that's enough. If you're number two, you run to beat number one. And that's just the way a race works. If you happen to be number one, well, good for you. If you happen to be number two, well, nothing wrong with that. You got number one to beat. That's a good thing. It doesn't mean you and number one are enemies. And that brings us to our last point. We have looked at differences in time. We have looked at differences in circumstances. We've asked ourselves if we're even doing the same thing. We've looked at differences in skill. Maybe the skill that they're applying to be successful is not even the skill that we are thinking about. We've tried to admit that sometimes people are just better than we are. And we've finally understood that having rivals is a good thing. So how do we finish it all? How do we end it all? To be able to take a deep breath and say, like, I'm okay with this. Well, other people's success doesn't mean your failure. Success is not a finite resource. It's not like there's only a certain amount of successes in the world, and that success that other person had is another opportunity lost for you. That's not the way it works. That another person succeeds doesn't mean that you fail. And that another person fails does not mean you succeed. But another person's success could possibly open doors for you to succeed. Now, what do I mean with this? Well, say, for example, you want to make a certain type of game, right? You want to make point-and-click erotic adventure. And, well, you're not the only one. Other people want to make point-and-click erotic adventures. And you've been doing this for a while. But you've never succeeded. And another person on the other side of the planet is doing it as well. And they haven't succeeded either. Well, each and every single one of their failures is not going to bring you any closer to success. But on the other hand, if they were to be successful with their point-and-click erotic adventure, that means that suddenly there's going to be a lot of attention on that genre. And maybe that's going to open doors for you. Now, of course, sometimes you have to lay down the ego a little bit and accept that, well, yeah, sure, I would have preferred it if I were the one opening the doors, but the point is, the door is open now. Go through it. Are you really so self-destructive and petty that you're not going to go through the door simply because you were not the one that opened it? No. Other people's success helps us succeed. I think the saying goes, a rising tide raises all ships, something like that. I don't know the saying. I don't live in a place with an ocean. But other people's success can open doors for us. Other people's failures, on the other hand, does nothing. It's just, life goes on as it was. If you succeed at what I'm doing too, that might draw attention to what I'm doing as well. So, in a way, we should be happy that other people are succeeding. Success is not a finite resource, and other people's success can end up pushing my success. So, try to be happy because, hey, you're pushing things forward and you're opening doors, and I can go through those doors. That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I had opened the door, but whatever, let's go. So in conclusion, don't feel bad because you compare yourself to others, and don't feel bad because other people's success makes you feel insecure. It's natural, it's normal. It happens to us all. Just ask yourself if what you are comparing is really fair to yourself. Are the circumstances so different that there's really just no comparison here to be made? Is the other person simply better? And that doesn't mean that you suck. It just means that you got some work to do. Is the other person simply setting a goal for you and now they're your rival and that's a good thing? And are you understanding that other people's success can actually help you succeed? You don't have to feel bad because of how you feel, but how you deal with it is what makes all the difference. I am Abnormal, and I compare myself to other artists. Not because I'm evil, not because I'm horrible, simply because I'm honest, and I admit it. Yeah, I compare myself to other people. But I don't let it hold me back. And I try to use it as a way to actually push me forward. And I'm inviting you to do the same. Now, how do you deal with other people's success? How do you feel about it? As always, let's do the whole YouTube thing where you leave a comment if you want to share your story, or you leave a like because that helps, or you subscribe to the channel because that would be awesome. Check out my Patreon if you want a full-sized version of the image that you're seeing me work on in this video. Also, no wait, that's all I got. No, I do have a Twitch channel where you can see me work live. So Patreon, Twitch, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, and as always, let me know if you have a topic that you would like me to talk about in the future. For now, you've been watching or listening to the Ministry of Abnormality, and I have been your host, Abnormal. I will see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening. Stay naughty, and goodbye.